Good evening. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Council meeting on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. We will now have an invocation from Tim Giles with Inspire the Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Council, for this honor. Would you bow your heads with me? Heavenly Father, we come before you today as a body of leaders, elders, and citizens. Lord, we look for wisdom, that you would guide us. Father, I pray for strength and grace for everybody here today. Lord, you told us in your scriptures that you would guide the hearts of leaders like water. Steer our hearts right, that our city will be strong and faithful. We thank you for all of these things, for your guidance, for your protection, and for your grace. And I pray in the name of Jesus, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is roll call. Ms. Williams, if you please call the roll.
Council members Nancy Campbell. Here. Jenny Koch. Here. Jim Dolan.
Here.
David Diaz.
Here.
Cameron Moses.
Here.
Vice Mayor Michelle Lynn. Here. Mayor Kalshihi.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is item 5, which is our consent agenda. Would any of the council members like to remove any of the items for separate discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Koch,
Motion?
please.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Campbell, and we have a second from Councilmember Moses. Councilmember Koch, and a second from Councilmember Moses. All right, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 6 is our correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager report. Item 6.1 is our investment report as of December 31st, 2024. This can be found on our website. It's also included in your packet. Ms. Olson had included a memo with that as well, and we will file that accordingly. Item 6.2 is to announce the vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. Ms. Williams?
Mayor and City Council, this item is to announce vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. The city currently has 2 positions on the Board of Adjustment that are available, 1 regular member and 1 alternate member. Anyone interested can pick up a packet at City Hall, and they are also available on the city's website at www.lhcaz.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. And item 6.3 is our city manager's report. Good evening, Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Lots to share this evening. First off, we invite the public to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of our municipal court. It's already been a year, so we're marking the first full year of its operation, and this event will take place on Thursday, February 13th. It'll be at 5 p.m. and right here in the municipal courthouse parking lot, of course, located at 92 Acoma Boulevard South. This special occasion will bring together city leaders, staff, volunteers, the Chamber Building Industry Alliance, and members of the public to reflect on the courthouse contributions to justice, civic engagement, and community development. To ensure safety, the courthouse left turn lane off Acoma Boulevard and the entrance into the parking lot will be closed. And that'll start at 4 p.m. So we're asking everybody to park over at the City Hall parking lot and then take the walking path down to the courthouse. So for those that might need transportation, will be provided. I'd like to congratulate 2 of our city employees. Congratulate Terry Myers and Amelie Fratici for receiving 2 significant awards in their departments. Terry, our HR supervisor, earned her professional in human services certification after months of study and successfully passing a proctored exam covering a wide variety of HR topics. And Amelie, our safety manager, was awarded the Public Entity Safety and Health Professional Certification Award recipient or certificate recipient. This certificate targeted for those working in the public sector requires the completion of 110 hours of required and elective safety and health classes. Both of our employees have demonstrated exceptional commitment and achievement, and this achievement is worthy of celebration. The annual Lake Havasu Water Festival took place today. Today, of course, is Tuesday, February 11th, and it took place at the Island Ball Fields. So lots of fun pictures to share with the mayor and council and the public. We had fourth graders from local schools gathered to learn about water resources, including groundwater, stormwater, and of course, water conservation. Councilmember Cameron Moses, Deputy Director of Public Works Tim Kellett, and our city staff were all in attendance. The event featured engaging activities and valuable learning opportunities to educate students on the importance of water and its management. And all this is made possible through partnerships with the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension and the Arizona Project Water Education Today project. Mayor, we continue to honor and celebrate the contributions and milestones that shape our community. Pictured to the left, Mayor, you joined event organizers in proclaiming National Preschool Health and Fitness Day on January 31st. Early fitness is essential for lifelong well-being, and Little Knights Preschool encourages active play to support physical, cognitive, and social development while building motor skills, focus, and self-confidence. Next, on the top right corner, Mayor, you proclaimed February 1st and February 2nd as the 39th annual Winterfest Street Festival weekend. Lake Havasu City's ideal winter weather attracts year-round residents and visitors, contributing to our community and to our economy. We thank all who made our desert oasis home and participate in the winter events over the weekend. And lastly, Mayor, you proclaimed Catholic Schools Week, which of course is pictured in the bottom right corner. It was celebrated from January 26th through February 1st. And here the Diocese of Phoenix and Our Lady of the Lake Catholic School will be joining in the celebration this week. And the celebration will highlight the commitment of Catholic schools providing an education that emphasizes academic excellence, moral values, and respect for God, country, and all people. And Mayor, you attended the ribbon cutting for the American Business Club's Building Bridges Lake Havasu chapter, a new nonprofit dedicated to making a difference in our community. This incredible organization raises funds to provide therapy trikes for local families and organizations, giving individuals with mobility challenges the opportunity to experience the joy of movement. It was posted on the Facebook page and the website today. We need the public to help us finalize the name for our downtown event space. So thank you for everyone who participated in the previous poll. We received over 400 different ideas, and those were narrowed down. And now we're asking the public to once again to vote for the final name for our Downtown Catalyst Project space, or Corio Park, or all the things that we've been calling it. We will finally have a name for our space. So please visit the website at lhcaz.gov, visit our Facebook page, or scan the QR code here to lodge your vote. And Lake Havasu City Administrative Office will be closed on Monday, February 17th, in observance of President's Day. However, the Aquatic Center will remain open, and of course, police and fire services will not be affected. City offices will resume normal operation on Tuesday, January 20th. And I have a video to share with the council. This is a video that's produced by our Community Engagement Division. So thank you to Jerry Bracamonte and Steve Blake for putting this together. In this video, we have our certified arborist, Craig Geary, shares his expert tips on tree health, planting techniques, and long-term care. And our Deputy Director of Public Works, Tim Kellett, discusses smart irrigation and water conservation practices. So let's take a look at the video.
What's up, Lake Havasu? I'm Jerry Bracamonte, and I'm here with our certified arborist, Craig Geary, and our water expert, Tim Kellett, and we're here to talk about trees and how water efficiency helps out with the process. So, Craig, how long have you worked for Lake Havasu City, and what does it mean to be an arborist in our community, a certified arborist?
Thanks. It's almost been 30 years now, and what it means, I feel like you've really become a part of the community with the trees, planting the trees and stuff, because all the trees we're planting and take care of, we're not really doing it for ourselves. We're doing for the generations that come after us.
Our residents have noticed trees in the neighborhoods and throughout the community that are sick or struggling. Can you tell us why that might be happening?
We can touch on it. So this past summer was our second hottest summer, with the first hottest summer occurring the year before. The heat has a cumulative effect on our landscapes. The heat started early this year, middle of June. We got up into the 100 teens, and that heat continued into the fall. With heat has a lot of our plants are adapted to the desert heat, especially our native plants. But we got a lot of exotics that we've also grown, and all of our trees on irrigation. So kind of what happens with the heat, it's a delayed effect. We'll have 120 degree days with 90 degree nights. And what happens is it heats up the soil. So after 90 degrees, once the soil reaches that temperature, the roots start shutting down. The upper canopy of the tree is still transpiring. So the trees, unless they're adapted to our arid climates, will starting to stress, where they can't bring the water up from the soil into the upper canopy and continue their life processes.
Okay, so how can we catch this ahead of time, or how can we know when to let go of our trees that are suffering?
To begin with, the right tree, right place is what it's all about. And that really starts, you want to survey your planting site, and you want to see how much room. Do you have room for a mesquite, which can get a 50-foot spread? Or do you need something smaller, like maybe a Palo Blanco, which only has a 10-foot spread? This is probably the most important thing for growing of trees in the landscapes. So one preventative thing you can do is build mounds when you're planting trees. You want to plant your trees above grade to allow for the settling of the soil. And then in the first few years of its life, you want to make sure it has ample water, and that's the efficient use of water.
Lake Havasu City has won the Tree City USA Award many years in a row. How many years?
23 years now.
23 years. Tim, as a leader in water management in Arizona, how has Lake Havasu City balanced water use when it comes to trees and plants?
I think the key there is efficiency. And it's constantly looking at how we're using our water and where we're using our water and making sure it's not ever being wasted. We spend a lot of time looking at our irrigation systems, how they're controlled and how they're managed, to make sure when there is a project or a planting that it is used properly.
We're now in front of the Havasu Water Smart Garden located in front of City Hall. Shout out to our class of 2024 Supervisor Excellence Academy for putting this project on. Are there creative water efficient technologies or tips that can benefit trees and plants?
Well, in the technology landscape, there is something called a smart irrigation controller. They're available at the big box stores and are part of the Havasu efficiency program. So you have incentives there to install these devices. They allow the plants to be watered with the most efficient amount of watering. And there's other practices you can do, things like using mounding techniques to hold water underneath the plants and drip irrigation. All of these tools are available at your big box stores, and your nurseries can help you design a program and a planting palette that will most efficiently use the water.
Craig, as part of the Havasu Water Smart Garden, in which a project you were a part of in designing and creating this beautiful landscape that we have in front of us now here at City Hall, are there specific tree species or landscaping approaches that blend beauty that our residents and our businesses can benefit from?
Yes, there is, and we used many of them in this project. We used some yellow bells and orange bells, which is one of our natives. We have penstemons here. We have desert willows. We even used a native palm, the California fan palm. All these plants can be found on the city's website. We have a arid zone plant list that can be used in our city, and they all do really well in our desert climate.
Thank you again for meeting with me today and all your efforts in the community and helping us make a difference, one tree and one drop of water at a time. So until next time, that's what's up, Lake Havasu.
Mayor and Council, again, thank you to Jerry Bracamonte, Stephen Blake, Craig Greery, and Tim Kellett for putting that video together. It was a conversation that took place a couple weeks ago amongst Council, and the team got together to put the information so we can make that readily available to the public. Yeah, Mayor and Council, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 7, which is our public hearings. During each of our public hearings, we will have an opportunity for our citizens to engage on the topic. We do encourage you to do so at that time because we can have a two-way conversation if it's on that topic. There will be a call to the public at the end of the meeting where you can address the council on any items within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City, but we can't have a two-way conversation at that point, but we can listen intently. There will be a light indicator box on the screens during the public portion of the meeting. Move on to our first item of the public hearing is item 7.1 is a Series 7 beer and wine liquor license for Oasis Eateries at 201 Swanson Avenue. Ms. Williams?
Mayor and City Council, Rudolph Valentino Jr. Candido has applied for a Series 7 beer and wine bar liquor license for Oasis Eateries located at 201 Swanson Avenue. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. The location is properly zoned for a Series 7 liquor license. Happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also in attendance tonight to answer any questions from the City Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council for Ms. Williams or the applicant? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or a possible motion.
Mayor, motion.
Yeah, Councilmember Moses.
Yeah, I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control approve a Series number 7 beer and wine bar liquor license for Oasis Eateries, 201 Swanson Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Moses, a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.2 is ordinance number 25-1353, amending Lake Havasu City Code Section 2.04.280, council request. Ms. Gary?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item was introduced at the last City Council meeting. Certain changes were requested by Council, which were made and incorporated into the final ordinance. The changes are outlined in both the Council communication and the tract ordinance that was attached to your Council packet. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Gary. Are there any questions from any members of the council for Ms. Gary? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this item?
Good evening, Bonnie Toy. Mayor, Council. I was just curious, actually, if Ms. Kelly, if one of the council members decided right now at the last moment that they wanted to change the wording on the ordinance, would that be allowed per the way everything is written? The whole, the process of it. I was just curious.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, it can be as long as it's in the code section in chapter 2.04.280. Council requests. The council is free to make any changes this evening that they'd like prior to making a motion for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Motion.
Yeah, Councilmember Diaz.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 25-1353, amending City Code Section 2.04.280 as written.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Diaz, a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.3 is resolution number 25-3810, approving a minor general plan amendment, revising the future land map designations for 1719 Magnolia Drive, tract 2304, block 1, lot 38, approximately 0.31 acres from high density residential to medium density residential. Mr. Kearns.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The subject property is 0.31 acres and is undeveloped. It is located on Magnolia Drive between Socorro Drive and Stonecrop Drive. The abutting property to the east is developed with a 4-unit residential complex. The property to the west is developed with a single-family home, and the property to the north is undeveloped. The general plan future land use map designates this property as high-density residential. The high-density residential future land use designation allows primary uses such as attached single-family residences, townhouses, patio homes, apartments, condos, co-housing, and live-work dwellings. The applicant's letter of intent asks to amend the city's general plan future land use map for the subject property from high-density residential to medium-density residential to facilitate development of a 2-unit residential use in the existing residential commercial health district. The general plan amendment is the first step in this process. A rezone application for the property immediately follows this general plan amendment request. The proposed amendment is in conformance with many goals and policies within the city's general plan and is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. This concludes staff presentation, and the applicant is also present.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns. Are there questions from members of the council for Mr. Kearns on this item? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. So this, again, this item is coming forward to us with the a recommendation from our Planning and Zoning Commission of 7-0. The letter of intent states that the applicant is looking to move in to this home as their retirement home. Without that, I would entertain a motion if there's no comments.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Koch,
Motion?
please.
Move to adopt resolution number 25-3810, approving a minor general plan amendment revising the future land use map designations for 1719 Magnolia Drive, tract 2304, block 1, lot 38, from high-density residential to medium-density residential.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch, a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.4 is ordinance number 25-1354, approving the general development plan and plan development rezone of 1719 Magnolia Drive, tract 2304, block 1, lot 38, from residential commercial health district to residential commercial health planned development district to reduce the minimum required dwelling unit density from 15 units per acre to 5 units per acre and eliminate the requirement of 50% of the structure to be a 2-story building. Mr. Kearns.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the same property from the previous item, but is in regard to the zone change. The subject property is zoned residential commercial health district, which requires a minimum of 15 dwelling units per acre and 50% of the structure to be 2-story. The property measures 0.31 acres, therefore the minimum number of dwelling units required on the subject parcel is 4.65, which would round up to 5 units. The applicant's letter of intent asks to reduce the minimum density from 15 units per acre to 5 units per acre to build a single-story, 2-family residence on the property, which will require an exemption from the requirements to have 50% of the building be 2-story. This rezone request complies with the required findings of the development code and is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here today.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns. Are there questions from members of the council for Mr. Kearns or the applicant? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor, motion.
Yeah, please.
I move to adopt ordinance number 25-1354, approving the general development plan and plan development rezone of 1719 Magnolia Drive, tract 2304, block 1, lot 38, from residential commercial health district to residential commercial health plan development district to reduce the minimum required dwelling unit density from 15 units per acre to 5 units per acre and eliminate the requirement of 50% of the structure to be a 2-story.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Moses, a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.5 is professional services agreement with Southwest Behavioral Health Services, Inc. for substance abuse and behavioral health treatment services for the Building Bridges Court. Good evening, Judge Kalali.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and aloha. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you folks tonight a little bit about the next three items, actually. As you folks are aware, one of the reasons that we had asked that we have a new court space is because the physical space of the old courthouse didn't allow us to branch out into some of the other things that we wanted to do, including adding some treatment courts to what we do. Since we have a beautiful building and one that's big enough to handle the things that we would like to do, I want to thank you folks for your support on that. And this is that next step that we promised that we would take once we had the space to do that. And that is, we know and have known for a long time that there's a lack of the ability for the courts to deal with mental health issues for people that come into the legal system. And as you folks are probably aware, one of the worst things that you can do for somebody with mental health issues is lock them in a cell, put them by themselves. That will exacerbate any problems that they were having before. And when they come back out, they're not set up to be successful in anything. And so one of the things that we really wanted to do for a long time is to start a mental health court. What we found as time has gone on is that the mental health and substance use issues that are typically partnered together. Meaning if somebody has mental health issues, very often they're using substances to address the mental health issues. Or if somebody has substance use issues, very often it comes back that they have mental health issues also. And so what we're proposing and what we're working towards doing, and these three items are designed to do that using the opioid funding, is to have what we call a Building Bridges Court, a co-occurring mental health and substance use court. That means that when they come into the system and they're identified as having a mental health issue and a substance use issue, we can bring them into a court that will, over an extended period of time, help them and provide them with the services that they need. We've had great success with our Veterans Court. We've had great success with our Youth Court. And this court is patterned after those courts. And that is, the idea behind it is more focused intervention up front gives us a better result on the back end. And I think that that's the idea behind all of these. And we're excited to do that. We're moving forward quickly. We think that by mid-March, we should be ready to go to start identifying those people that might best benefit from these services. And this first item is an agreement with Southwest Behavioral Health Services, with whom we've had a great partnership for years. And we work with them in our veterans courts here and in Kingman. And so we're wanting to formalize that in this agreement, that they will provide services for those people that come into the program that don't have other options as far as paying for those services. One of the things that we've appreciated about Southwest is they have other sources or other ways to pay for those services, and they will use those first before they come to us. There is a cap on each of these over the next three of $50,000. This is using the opioid funding, which is what the opioid funding is designed to do. And so we're excited to be able to do that and provide this service to each of the people that come into the program. So with that, then, Mayor and Council, if there are any questions or I need to explain something a little bit more, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Judge Kalali. It's surprising in your council communications, the council established the problem-solving courts 3 years ago. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. So
that's right.
It's good to see this come to fruition, and now that we have the space and the ability to do this, we'll be able to help people in a different type of a way. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, very nice. Questions or comments from members of the council for the judge? All right. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan?
Motion?
Please.
I move to authorize the city manager to execute the professional services agreement with Southwest Behavioral Health Services, Inc. not to exceed the amount budgeted for those services annually, contingent on receiving the allotted opioid settlement funds.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Our next item is 7.6, professional services agreement with Avertest LLC for alcohol and drug testing services for the Building Bridges Court. Judge Kalali.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. And I feel like I could just say ditto and then sit down. But there is a little bit more to this that I wanted to bring to your folks' attention. One of the things that makes treatment courts successful is the ability to ensure that they're doing what they need to be doing. We use AverHealth, which is an alcohol and drug testing service here in Lake Havasu. We have looked for other opportunities to do that. We even thought about bringing it in-house, but financially it doesn't really make sense right now to do that. Possibly in the future we might bring that back to you folks to consider. But AverHealth has done a good job for us. They have a facility here and they have a facility in Kingman. Also, they have facilities across the West, and sometimes we've had to send some of our veterans to those facilities in other states and in other areas of Arizona. They've done a good job for us so far, and we look forward to continuing with that partnership. One of the things that I would want to explain to you folks is that we tell the people that are testing in these programs, we trust you, but we also verify. And so we do that by testing. And it's better for you to test and test positive than to not test at all. Testing and testing positive means that we need to address your treatment, that maybe we need to make changes to your treatment plan. But if you choose not to test, that is what we would call criminal thinking, meaning that you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and you know that. And so there's a difference in how we address that. If you test and test positive, we change your treatment plan. If you choose not to test, then you get to see the judge and things change a little bit. But I just wanted to bring that to you folks so you understand the power of testing and how that's been successful for us.
Thank you, Judge. Are there questions from members of the council? Councilmember Diaz?
Judge Kay, just a quick question. So are we using these services now? We just don't have an agreement with them?
Correct.
This just formalizes it, and
so we do have an agreement with them for veteran court purposes and for youth court purposes, but we need to have an agreement with them for our Building Bridges Court, and that's what this is. Yes.
Marilyn?
Can you tell us how much we're receiving in the opioid settlement? What the funds are?
I'm hoping that somebody can help me out on this.
And then I have a two-part. So after those funds are exhausted, how do we continue doing these courts once those funds are, like, where do we get that?
So a couple of things. We're already in the process of identifying other opportunities for funding. And we do that with all of our courts, that we really try and find funding from different sources in case something like that happens. One of the other things that we might, the fund balance through December is $750,869. So with what we're asking for today, that would be, if we were to use the entire amount and that's all that we got, that would be, $150,000 a year. So for 5 years.
For all of three of these services that's in front of us today?
Well, that doesn't mean that we will use $150,000 every year. For example, Southwest, like I said, only bills us if they don't have another source. Not everybody has to test the entire amount of time. And for the third one that we'll be talking about in just a minute, we don't put everybody on that alcohol monitor. It's just under certain circumstances that we do that.
And I guess I don't know a lot on this settlement. It's already been okay that we can use those funds for all these services.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's my understanding on opioid dollars, the fund balance that Ms. Olson provided, Judge Kalali, is the fund balance today, but they pay in a schedule. Is it 10 years or 20 years? 20 years. So over 20 years, we'll continue to get payments. This is from, when we talk about the opioid settlement, this is the major class action lawsuit that went out to opioid opioid makers or producers of these drugs that were selling them under the guise of them not being addictive or something along those lines. So Lake Havasu City entered into that class action lawsuit, and these are the funds that we'll receive. And again, that's just the fund balance we currently have in the bank. But over the next 20 years, we'll continue to get annual payments to that money. And there'll be other uses, but this specific use is one of the approved uses in that settlement.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from members of the council before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion. Yeah, Councilmember Diaz.
Mayor, I move to authorize the city manager to execute professional services agreement with Avertest LLC, not to exceed the amount budgeted for these services annually, contingent on receiving the allotted opioid settlement funds.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Diaz and a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.7 is a professional services agreement with Scram of Arizona, Inc. for continuous alcohol and drug monitoring services for the building Bridges Court. Judge Clalley.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. One more time up here. So this is it. If somebody is having trouble with their UA testing, this is another option to do that. Sometimes it's a step up because you have a monitor that's placed on your ankle, and so it's a constant reminder of something. Also, as part of that, the monitor only monitors alcohol, so there's a patch that goes along with that that does test for those drugs that people might be using. And so this is typically used in situations where they're not able to comply with the UA testing for whatever reason, or they've continued to have issues with testing negative. And so then we sometimes will step them up for that constant reminder. And we have a good relationship with Scram. We have used them for years. And they're really right now the only option for that continuous alcohol monitoring through a bracelet. There are other options, backpacks, things like that. But as far as continuous monitoring through an ankle bracelet, this is the only one that's out there right now.
Thank you, Judge. Any questions or comments from members of the council? Vice Mayor Lind?
A question, the patches, like how long are they?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, they would have to get them changed out. And so sometimes the problem with patches is that there will be a type of drug that goes past the 2 weeks. And so they have to wear that patch with enough time to get a negative patch. And then if something turns up positive, that's when we would take action in some.
And I think I know a little bit about this. So, and there's ways of checking like that they are not messing around with them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And it's pretty spelled out pretty clearly as to what is a tamper and what isn't a tamper. So.
Are there any other questions before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or motion.
Mayor. Motion.
Councilmember Dolan.
I move to authorize the city manager to execute the professional services agreement with SCRAM of Arizona, Inc., not to exceed the amount budgeted for these services annually, contingent on receiving the allotted opioid settlement funds.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any additional discussion? We're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Mayor and Council, thank you, and thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you, Judge. Our next item is item 7.8, task order number 10 under the Master Professional Services Agreement for as-needed aviation consultant services for hangar development services with CNS Engineers, Inc. Mr. Kane.
Mayor, Council, thanks for having the airport to see you today. So I think we all know that for years we've had a significant wait list for hangars. And so this is designed to do some hangar development planning, and we need the expertise and experience that a consultant can bring to this project. The goal is to develop an economically feasible and executable plan for the city to develop additional hangar space and increase revenue over the long haul. Oops. Where'd we go? So the area we're talking about for this particular consulting effort and design is outlined in the green, and we call that the North Apron. They did a preliminary design several years ago with the help of the CNS contractors or consultants, and this was a representative design of what it would look like. There's several box hangars on the south side, which would be on the right, as well as numerous nested T hangars that are in each of the, we'll call them taxi lane areas. And then in addition to the 6 city-owned hangars that are on the top of the map, there's additional box hangars to the north. This was representative based on some of the looking at how many people we had on the wait list and things like that. So there was over 120 people on the wait list currently. The number one person on the list has been on the list for 20 years. And so part of this has to do with city development and city ownership of the hangars. And that way we keep that wait list as opposed to not having a wait list or folks being able to rent to the highest bidder, which poses a problem. And that's what causes that list to be so long for so long. This one. Yeah, that's it. It's going the wrong way is what it was doing. Yeah. Council, that's pretty much everything I've got as I navigate through this. That's the last one.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Kane. Are there questions from members of the council for Mr. Kane?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan.
I have a question. I know we have an RFP going for the south area and we're looking into that. I know the city's still negotiating and trying to figure that out. How does that come into, are we treating that separate? Are they going to help us in the planning of coordinating that if that happens, or do these work separately or simultaneously? How does that fit into the picture?
So I would say this is from my perspective, the South Development area has been going on now in terms of negotiations for 2 years. We tried to do this North area several years ago also, and those RFPs were, as I understand it, found non-responsive when they were, reviewed. And so this north area, we tried it didn't work. We went to the south area for a variety of reasons. We're still in negotiation to see if that's going to work. This, I would say, it's a different approach.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Knutson.
And Councilmember Dolan. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kane. So we're looking at as the number one person on the wait list has been there for 20 years. We have well over 100 different people that are on that wait list. And so we've been trying to scratch our head and work with our partners on what it's going to take to develop some hangar space at the airport. We try to do it with some grant dollars. We try to do it through some RFP processes over the last several years. But right now we're trying to collaborate with the resources that the city has and working in concert with our partner that we're in negotiations with for the hangar space at the south end of the airport. So conversations have taken place that we don't want to make sure that we're not doing something that's going to hurt hangar development at the north end of the airport. We don't want to impact negatively the hangar development at the south end of the airport and vice versa, right? We want to make sure that we have a global plan, a big picture perspective, and then do what's right in terms of the users of the airport for that hangar development. So we don't want to compete, but we want to work in concert with our partners at the airport through that process, in concert.
Okay, perfect. And then I learned that too. If we learned anything about RV units and here in Havasu, there's never enough of them. But I guess that may be the issue too with the hangars as well is I don't know of many airports where they have too much hangar space, as far as my understanding. So I know we're always cautious of getting too far out ahead, but, I definitely would see this as a good option for both parties and good for the airport as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bell. Councilmember Diaz?
I have a question.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Diaz, and then we'll go to Councilmember Campbell. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you clarify the number of hangars we're talking about possibly building again?
So in the picture that was represented, that was around 30.
Okay.
Yeah, but it depends on which kind you build, whether they're box hangars or the nested T hangars. And so one of the things that we're doing, and it should be out on Friday, is we're surveying that whole list, and we're going to solicit what kinds of hangars would you actually be interested in? How big? How many? Would you like to lease them, buy them, build them yourself? And so it's a kind of a comprehensive demand survey. So we can figure out what do we really need to do in that space, which should also help us with if we choose to continue with the South area development, what that looks like. And then the other thing we're going to do is revalidate, as part of that process, validate that there is actually 120 people that want hangars. And one of the things that we're going to implement is that a deposit. So to put in an application to be on the waiting list, you should give us a deposit. And that's common throughout the airport community.
So let's think ahead. Let's say everyone comes back and said, I want to buy the hangar. So we would lease the land. We would lease land and we would sell them the building on top of that land.
So that's part of the strategy that we're going to flesh out with the consultant. Is there's a variety of ways that you can do this, and so prepaid lease is one of them, where you just do the ground lease, and they pay up front, the city gets the money. You could build the hangar yourself as a city, sell it back to them. There's just different ways of doing this. So getting the expertise with somebody that has done this several times in different places was really what I'm looking for. And that we can present back to the city something that's economically and actually economically feasible and operationally sensible for what we need to do to develop the airport. As the city manager mentioned, it needs to be kind of coherent across the whole airport, because these two spaces are really all we have left. If we don't do this right, either economically for the city or operationally sensibly for the numbers of tenants that we can put on the airfield, that would be a big mistake.
Thank you.
So what we're doing here, this is just a planning document. So this is a consultant to plan to bring options forward to the council for consideration in the future. Without this, we don't really have we can talk about lots of different things, but we'll be able to have the opportunity, as well as whatever that self-development is, as well as that RFP comes together. So it's kind of bringing all of these together from a planning perspective. Councilmember Campbell?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My concern is that we are just using this consultant for this portion. And can't we just, if that's their expertise and we're hiring them, why can't we get them at a higher level and see the whole airport as a whole? Because what I understand is the RFP that we have today is still waiting for direction from our city on how to move forward. That is what I've been told. And I feel confident that that's the direction that it is. It's not so much that we're waiting for them, they're waiting for us. And so why wouldn't we use this consultant company to assist the whole picture to get the RFP moving forward on the south and then possibly help us with the north? But if you're hiring them anyways, and we've had an RFP waiting almost for 2 years to get total direction from the city, why have we not incorporated the whole airport with this company?
So they do help us with consulting on the whole airport. They also made a preliminary design for the south area years ago that I found in the file. So they have done this. I certainly will consider in this process the whole thing, but the focus of the effort is on the north area. But it's got, you're absolutely right, council member. It's got to be comprehensive because, like I said, we only have 2 more spots to do this.
Do you think that they could give them the answers that they need to possibly move forward with the RFP on the other side?
So the RFP on the south side, the city really has to decide what it wants to do. And so I do owe you that kind of a recommendation as to what makes sense in that area. And whether it's commercial air service, extra ramps, additional hangars, some kind of manufacturing that might go in there. There's a lot of things that could go in there that we didn't, I don't think we expressed that as well as we could have in the original RFP. And that's to me, that's what's caused most of this challenge, is we didn't give the direction on what we really wanted when we put the RFP on the street. And so now we're going back to lay out what the city would like to see. To me, it's backwards, but I wasn't here and I'm just trying to figure it out.
And I think it's important to understand that we're in contract negotiations right now. There's a few things that are happening. What we want to do is kind of take a big step back in terms of our approach to the airport. We're going to utilize the consultant. As you see on the agenda, this is task order number 10. So we've used C&S for a lot of years on big picture. We've conducted the airport master plan and so forth. So that from that perspective, we certainly want a high level perspective and then drill down from there to make sure that we are the tasks that we're conducting today are in concert with the bigger picture. So that's really important. I stop short the conversations because we are in contract negotiations and there's some things that we're discussing and that we'll be able to have a more fruitful negotiation, bring something together and to the city council here in the next couple of months. And again, this is all for the betterment of the airport users.
Do you have any other questions, Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members of the council? All right. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Bonnie, Toy. I was curious about the whole hangar situation and the pretty picture of where the hangars were, and it looked like new pavement and runway stuff to where obviously the planes would go up into the hangars. Is that also part of the development planning process, or will the asphalt and all the stuff for the airplane to go up to the hangars, will that be a totally different order thing?
No, so this would be all from a planning perspective. And then if that's the plan that we want to go through, then the development side would be where do you put the taxiways, where do you put the asphalt, where do you put all of those things to make it work?
So the hangar development is one thing, the taxi lanes or something else?
No, this is planning for hangars. So that would take all of the components into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Dante Marinelli with Havasu Air Center. We've been out at the airport for 15 years now, so I kind of have a little bit of background as to need and wants. And absolutely, is there a need for hangar space? Absolutely. I don't think there's any debate there. I think the debate is how we get it and the most efficient way to get it and how can the city benefit out of it with developing growth at the airport. This is a different approach. I mean, for sure, what you're asking to do is using city funds to develop, obviously hangars. And normally cities have to do that when no one else steps up to develop city hangars. So in other words, there's no private party to work with, and the city has no option. They need to develop growth of their airport, and they got to pay for it themselves. They got to put taxpayer money up, and they got to put ROI risk, and they have to do all these things. And there's ways, and listen, at the end of the day, the airport needs to be self-sustaining. And so how do we do that the best way possible, right? And how do we also limit our risk for our taxpayers and our people that, don't actually, are not going to get anything out of these hangars. But ultimately, as I said, this is at $20,000. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it is a drop in the bucket. And when we're talking about a high level we're talking about real high level. we're talking about, I saw the breakdown of the services that we're talking about, which is, wastewater, but I can tell you because I was one of the applicants on the first time out for this spot. And we spent significantly more than that developing a plan for that site, which ultimately didn't work. It didn't work from an economic standpoint because it's too small. You needed more square footage. You needed more of this. The costs were even, that was 9 years ago. The costs have extravagantly gone up from there for steel costs and construction costs. So, I'm here to say that, ultimately I don't want to get into the RFP on the south side because we're in on that now, but I can tell you that I know all of you have seen a little bit of what we proposed there, and there is a lot more space to do more things with and do it more economically. And so to look at this north side on just a very small scale, to help the airport and to really get past this, we need to be focusing on a large plan that's going to really focus on a longer term, and $20,000. Don't get me wrong. Sure, spend the money if you want to and look at it, but it's not going to get us where we need to go. Even in that little tiny plan that we had up there, they're not talking about, even runoff water. So now the rules are different, right? You just can't drain in, like we could 8 years and 9 years ago when that plan was drawn up. So you don't have any retention basins on that site. You don't have anything. So by the time you actually boil that down, even past where we were, and this was 8 years ago, past where we were, you're going to get even less space out of that area. And not only that, but we haven't qualified, we are in the process of qualifying, I should say, what size hangar we need, because that will dictate everything. So all of a sudden we go from a 38-foot T hangar to a 42-foot T hangar. Well, it doesn't sound very big. Well, on that size, now every time we're talking only 14 or 15 of certain size hangars. Okay. And I would like to point out that, there are certain things that cities do well and certain things that private parties do well. And the fact is that as a city, you're limited to what you can charge, how you can raise fees. I think the airport right now is a testament to that, because right now we're behind where we need to be as far as charging for what we have, even assets out that the city owns. And you hit on that where, hey, this guy's been on the wait list for 20 years because he didn't want to pay, private party costs. That's not really true. But what I think is more apt is, hey, that's even more reason why you should be scared about building a development where you can't charge really ROI costs to get your money back out of this in a real way. So, my point is that what we'd like to see for our company, which has spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on the south end, we have a place inside there for more than enough units, for more than T hangars, and the city we'd like to partner, and we've expressed this, we'd like to partner with you guys to, if you want to own hangars, you want to be in the business of hangars, which I don't feel you should be, but if you want to be in that business, why don't we throw in together and use this 20,000 or 30,000 or 50,000, whatever you want to do, to actually get a real plan that's going to actually knock something out for the rest of the 50 years, not a little tiny site that, yes, it's going to be a Band-Aid. If you get some stuff up there, people are going to fill those hangars. Don't get me wrong. They'll fill probably before you build them. The issue is it enough? We're behind the curve. We need to get ahead of the power curve. And right now, building 15 or 20 hangars isn't enough. But if we split the baby up and you try and do something over here, I do try something over there, it's just not going to get anywhere. We're not going to have enough. We need to combine efforts. And honestly, if the city wants to be part of that project, we welcome it. We just want to see funds and taxpayer funds spent the right way to develop these sites, and efficiently. So thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Lynn.
Can I ask the city manager a question? Is there any possibility we can do what Mr. Marinelli said about working together for the bigger plan? Like, I don't want a Band-Aid either. I'm just curious, and is there any merit to what he has to say?
May I ask a question about this real quick, though? Is this something we should talk about in an executive session, since this is a contract negotiation we're essentially talking about, and we don't want to essentially weaken our position? Is that something that's needed?
Mayor Scheer, Vice Mayor Lynn, Councilmember Moses. We're on that cusp, right, of having conversations in terms of a direction that's been provided and the guidance in terms of direction that staff is going. So I'll stop short of any of those conversations. Obviously, the conversation with the Mayor, Council, and City Attorney can dictate if a session is warranted. But But there's a direction on the table that staff is pursuing based on council guidance, right? And so that answers a little bit of the question that's on the table. But take a little bit step back there. In terms of working together, we're going to work together. It's Lake Havasu City's airport. So we're always going to be part of the project and development that's going to take place on the south side. We're the landlord. We're the owner of the property. So those conversations have to continue in that type of vein. Again, all we want to do is make sure that we're at all times that we're achieving the goal. And the goal is the big picture in terms of the users at the airport. How do we develop hangars for the users at the airport? And I think that's always going to be the goal in terms of how we get there. So whether it's in concert with our partners, whether it's a effort led by the city, those are both achievable. They're not independent of each other. In terms of the north end of the airport, one of the conversations we're having with our airport manager Rob Kane and Ron Foggin in Public Works is trying to put together a plan that would make the airport a little more self-sustainable in terms of funding. I think that's an important part of this conversation as well too. Councilmember Diaz, you mentioned earlier about selling the property or leasing the property. It always has to be airport property, so we'd always be leasing that space. But we do have the ability to make some decisions on whether or not we build it and sell it, or we build it and lease it, or we let others build it. But we'll always own that property. We have to, per FAA rules. Right now, the general fund subsidizes the airport fund to a small degree, but still to a degree. It's not self-sustainable. The dollars raised at the airport don't pay for the operations of the airport. So what Mr. Kane is trying to propose in terms of some of the conversations at the north end is how do we make the airport self-sustainable so that the general fund isn't paying for the day-to-day and annual operations, much less any type of capital projects that take place there. Now, on the south end of the airport, there's an opportunity for us to partner, but that's going to take a significant investment by our partners at the airport, and that's something that we'll have to have those conversations and protect the interest of the city, protect the interest of the users of the airport, and that's the path we're down. That's the goal we're trying to achieve, and some of the details. Obviously, Vice Mayor Lynn, I can't get into because we had those conversations, but rest assured the guidance given to staff is being followed step by step.
Mr. Mayor, I have another question. Mr. Kane, have you done these type of developments in the past, in your other past life? Have you done this before? And is this $20,000 the cost that it usually costs to do something like this?
As you know, ma'am, I'm used to more like billions of dollars. So I don't know. When I did the discussions with the CNS consultants, this is the sort of magnitude of how much they think it would take to get to the point where you would move into a task order 11, which would be then the design and contract or construction management for actually doing it. So that would be it's just like doing the lights and signs project or the taxiway alpha or the runway reconstruction. We would go past the 20 into another task order, which would say, we're presenting you something that you would approve that says, we're going to try this. And then we would move forward.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
I agree with Councilmember Moses. I have some other questions and concerns in regards to this that I would really like to go into executive session, if that's possible.
Yeah, if you
for legal advice. Yes.
You have questions for legal advice. If so, we can make a motion to adjourn to executive session to get legal advice from our city attorney.
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We will adjourn for a time and have a discussion with our city attorney. For those of you in attendance, we will resume back to where we started and come back to this public meeting as soon as we're done with this. All right, we'll go ahead and resume the council meeting on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. It is now 6:45 and the Lake Havasu City Council is returning to our regular meeting from an executive session. We're on item number 7.8, which is task order number 10 under the Master Professional Services Agreement for as needed aviation consultant services for hangar development services with CNS Engineers Inc. Mr. Kane, the airport manager, gave a report. We've already had discussion as a council. We've opened the public hearing, closed the public hearing, and now we're at council discussion or possible motion. Is there any additional council discussion or possible motion?
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan?
Motion?
Please.
I move to approve task order number 10 under the Master Professional Services Agreement with CNS Engineering, Inc. for the hangar development services in the amount of $20,000.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. Item 7.9 is the bid rehabilitation of Water Well 9 with Mike's Drilling LLC. Good evening, Mr. Kellett.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to present another goal of keeping our water infrastructure as reliable and operational as possible. Staff has been evaluating all wells, as we typically do, to see how efficient they are being, how well they are running, and well 9 has been identified as the next needed for a rehabilitation program. The last time that this well was rehabilitated was roughly 2017. And at that time, it looked like it was producing about 500 GPM less than what we were looking for. And now it's 1,000 GPM less. And just to get that into perspective, 1,000 gallons per minute is approximately 1.4 million gallons per day. So that would make this well, once rehabilitated, our second highest producing well. The horizontal collector well will always be number one, but this will be our largest well in the North Well Field. This is a very needed repair. And with this particular item, we will be able to pull it apart, look at it, clean it, look at it again to make sure the cleaning worked, and then put it back together. Also within this item, what we're looking for is the ability to repurchase the pump equipment if needed. The goal is to rehab them to be the most cost efficient possible. However, if they're identified to be non-functional, non-replaceable, or non-repairable, we will need to make those adjustments to bring Well 9 back into service. So what we're asking for today is to move forward with Mike's Drilling to perform this work. And the amount in this case is $105,186.75. And with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kellett. Are there questions from members of the council? Councilmember Diaz?
Just to get on the record, this is in the budget already?
Yes, this was originally actually identified, to be clear, as well number 2, but in looking at our well efficiencies, well 9 was much less efficient. Well 2 is actually one of our more efficient wells. Well 2 will eventually come up for rehab as part of this ongoing rehabilitation program, where every year we'll be looking at least one of the wells for rehab. That's how we're going to be keeping our system operationally reliable for the long term.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, members of the council? This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor, motion.
Councilmember Moses?
Move to award the bid for the rehabilitation of Water Well 9 in the amount of $105,186.75 to Mike's Drilling LLC.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Moses, a second from Councilmember Koch. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kellett. All right, item 8 is the call to the public. This is an opportunity where citizens have to address the city council on items within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. Again, we can't have a two-way conversation during this time, but we can listen intently to comments and feedback from citizens. Your time is limited to 3 minutes. There will be a light indicator box on the screens throughout the room. We did not have anyone sign up, and you don't have to sign up, but with that, would anyone like to address the city council call to the public? All right, we'll go ahead and close the call to the public. Move on to item 9, which is current events. Are there any council committee reports? All right, our future, item 10 is our future meetings. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. It's a regular meeting. And then on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m., we will also have a regular meeting. Item 11, are there any future discussion items? All right, item 12, motion to adjourn. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you for being here. Be kind, and we'll see you next time.